can get started at 4:31. And then we'll do we need to do verbal attendance?
I caught it, so
Okay.
thank you though.
Do you want to do introductions?
Oh.
Got some new folks?
Well,
Yeah.
of course.
Well, I can start. I think you all know me, but welcome, and delighted to have two new board members joining us today. Yeah.
So I'm Bruce, another Bruce. And how long do you want me to introduce myself? Do the short or long version?
I think short version is good.
Short version. Bob Lee's fault that I'm here. Thank you very much, Bob. He emailed my wife and I to see if either one of us wanted to join the board. So I'm happy to be here, happy to learn some stuff. I'm a retired neurologist here in town. And hobbies are music and chess and some philosophy and something else I can't remember right now.
Museum.
Oh, and the museum, my new home.
Bruce.
I'm Tom Kurtz. I'm on my second term. We had Bruce won, and I had the opportunity to interview the candidates, and they still showed up.
It scares off.
I'm vice chair. As you know, I almost started the meeting, but we saw Kelly coming down the hallway. Retired hospital CEO, by the way.
I'm Bruce Montgomery. I was the Archives Research Director for, 27 years, Director of the Research Archives at the University of Colorado. And I've served on this board a long time ago, from the 90s I actually moved to Longmont in the early 90s and was on the board from about, well before Eric got here, from about 93 until the early 2000s, something like that, right? And now I've come back. So,
Pulled you back.
yeah, it's the development of the museum has been really remarkable in that time. It started out in a little garage right across from the library. It used to be it was a garage.
Yeah, it was originally a city,
A little
city garage.
Yeah, but they
warehouse.
turned it into a little museum. And then the whole process of building this museum, and now it's being expanded. And so it's really grown with the city. It's really remarkable to see the development of the museum.
I'm Elizabeth Bodwin. I'm the current curator of history.
You make that sound like it's just very temporary.
No, I
Makes me
started,
nervous.
and I only started 6 months ago.
Well, you may be getting a little into sensitive territory.
Filling big shoes from Eric, who'd been in the role for a very long time.
Doing it very well.
I'm Callie Cordova. I'm the chair. This is my second term. And then I also work as a library associate in Erie.
I'm Catlin Keenan. My name gives Americans trouble. So I have a non-American name. It's Gaelic is the origin of my name. I am a professor at Front Range Community College. I teach philosophy and women and gender studies, and I'm happy to be here.
I'm Catherine Cox. This is my first time back since I fell and broke my shoulder in 2 places. This is my first term, and I'm a retired event planner due to COVID. And now I'm an artist. I paint. Not anything recently.
So I'm Randy Boxbaum. I think this is my first term. I'm going to be ending sometime next year around 6/25. I looked at it and I said, oh my. So I'm a retired social worker from New York, New Jersey.
I'm Bob Lee. Finished 1 year here and now up for 3 more. So I'm in for the long run. I spent many years on the Transportation Advisory Board. This is way more fun. And I'm glad to be here. So.
Too many wrecks.
Yeah.
You have to make the fun committee.
Oh, RTD and street rehabilitation. Yeah. Oh.
All right. I'm Joanne McCoy, the executive assistant.
And how long have you been here now?
Okay, so that's embarrassing. I've been here for about 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Did you start in the garage?
I did. I
Yeah, I think it did.
started sweeping the garage. Yeah, that was my job.
Right.
And then do we have any public to be heard? Then, I get a motion to approve the minutes from last time, or are there any corrections or amendments that we need to make?
I move that we approve the minutes.
I second.
And then I think we're ready for accessions.
You want to do a vote?
Oh, right.
Just for grins.
Just for grins. Do we all want to vote? Approval of minutes. Unanimous. Thank you.
All right. We have a bunch of stuff this time. First off, we received 8 modern photocopies of photos that we do not have in the archive, at least as far as I can tell. They're mostly related to this Longmont Realty Company, which was housed in the Emerson and Buckingham Bank in the 1910s or so. That building is no longer there. It's now an alleyway, but both exterior and interior pictures.
Of the bank.
Yeah, and there's a few others. There's one of which Ziggy's is now. We didn't have that particular angle of that photo, and there's some unknown ones that are probably Longmont. Might as well take in the collection.
So these are photocopies?
Yeah, they're modern printouts. I don't know if she had the originals or where it was her deceased husband's. So she just kind of found them.
Oh, well, that's pretty neat.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, he had a connection to the owner of the realty.
Didn't he own Wayne Jurgens? Didn't he own Longmont Realty and Insurance?
Sounds right.
Yeah. He was.
I didn't realize this was
on,
Wayne. Oh,
Yeah.
Teresa. Okay,
Teresa's,
cool.
So, yeah, he was on the Friends of the Museum board back in the 90s.
Yeah, it's crazy because Wayne was a tremendous supporter for the museum and really got the fence going at one point.
Oh, great. Do we vote individually or at the end?
Usually we vote everything all at once unless the board wants to break it up.
Any questions on this one?
So the building at the top, that's the,
It says Longmont Realty on the building,
Yeah.
and then the banner says something, the Longmont Realty Company, yeah.
oh, I see, okay.
But
Yeah,
it was originally a bank.
Huh.
Yeah.
And I got the right bank, right?
Yeah, that one.
do we know why it was abolished, building, why it was torn down?
I've never been able to figure out why they chose that building to tear down. It's the Breezeway in the middle of the 300 block. And I think it was just, well, this is the middle. So this is the one we're going to tear down. It's like the buildings on either side are perfectly ordinary, commercial structures. Then you have this amazing bank building. And for a long time, I kept hoping that it was like, it was just totally destroyed by the 60s when they were getting ready to do the breezeways. And then I found an angle and it's like, no, it was actually pretty intact, even in the 60s. So just sad urban renewal to mistake.
So when was it torn down? 70s?
60s. This was the first
Late 60s.
part of Longmont was what the organization was called. It was a precursor to the LDDA, and they started building the breezeways and the 300 block to connect to the parking lots behind.
Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Where am I putting this?
You might need to use the mouse.
Oh, thank you. There we go. I got a phone call from a woman, I think she lives in like Oregon or Washington State, but she grew up in Longmont. Her father owned the Telephone Exchange building, which is 477 Main Street, so it's on the southwest corner of Main Street at that's Fifth Avenue that crosses?
Yeah, it was Porter's Arcade.
Yeah, it's an arcade.
Yeah, that needs to be demolished too.
Well,
Yeah.
well, anyway, so this building, I don't have a picture of it, what it looked like before. So it's been renovated a couple times, and in the 60s, her dad put this sheath of brick up over all of the big windows to modernize it. He had it hired. He had some kind of like either dentist or doctor practice, and so he did that first, and then they eventually built a new building at 721 Fifth Ave, just kind of around the corner. So that's him standing at the lot before the building was built. It's the Barn Schwartz building. It is still there. It's got State Farm and I think MetLife insurance in it. It still says Barn Schwartz right on the side of the building. So it's the kind of construction of that building. There's like 6 or 7 photos of that. And then also a few photos from one of the Boulder County Fair parades. So we've got the little chuck wagon. I think this is her and her brothers in the back there. And that bank was also demolished, the one that's behind in that picture. So that's that fourth in May, or 5th in May as well. So yeah, so that, like I did, no brainer for these, I think. They show pictures of Longmont and have good provenance. Any questions on this one? This was just a one-off, a group photo from 2009. It was the 90th anniversary of the Rotary Club, and everyone is identified. There's Kanemoto's in this photo. There's a lot of names that I've seen. I think maybe Wayne Durbin's photo. So yeah, just like a lot of kind of movers and shakers from around 2009. And I figured, it doesn't seem old now, but it's a good one for the archive. This was a large donation that has dwindled down, and we've refined it over the course of maybe 2 months of conversation back and forth with this family. The Newton family had 22 children. They were all from the same mother. They had a farm out in Mead, and then when all the kids were grown, the parents moved to 619 Collier Street. One of their children, grown children, died tragically in a car accident in the 60s, orphaning 6 children, who all then moved in with their grandmother at 619, and she raised them. She died, I think, in the 1990s, and it was actually her daughter, Helen Newton, who passed away, and she was the last owner of 619, and so it's her children, so the grandchildren, who approached us with all of this stuff. Their mother had planned on donating in her lifetime and never did. She had some conversations with Eric like back in 2006 or something. But so yeah, this was her children kind of doing good by her mom. So we chose, I took a bunch, it was a lot of stuff, so I took some scans of the family and any buildings in Mead from their scrapbooks, and there was a few items that multiple children used. They were a Catholic family, so we have this communion dress that we have photos of the 2 girls wearing it, the first communion prayer book. I guess Helen Newton had to convert to Catholicism to get married. Apparently it was kind of a shotgun wedding. And so inside the prayer book is a little like, welcome to the family from her mother. rosary beads, a really kind of cool 1940s ironing, like iron thing, yeah, so kind of a cool story about this family. Oh, apparently 5 out of 6 or 4 out of 5, whatever how many basketball players are on a basketball team. I don't know sports. The Meade basketball team was almost entirely made up of Newtons at one point in the 1940s. And they were like champions, I guess.
Seems like most of the people in Longmont would be related to them in one way or another.
You know, we had some of the stuff laying out on the table because they'd just gotten dropped off. And then an older couple walked in just because they were here for the exhibits. And I said hello. And he looks down and he's like, I know that guy. That's this like 10-year-old kid in like this picture. And he's like, I'm friends with him. I'm like, oh, wow.
What kind of farming did they do?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask.
You know how many acres they have? How big the
We have
farm was?
pictures of the farm. It was fairly small. And I'm not sure if they were sort of sharecropper kind of situation or not. I will have to ask. And Helen knew, or not Helen, the daughter, I can't remember her name, but she was a very early flight attendant for United in the 1950s, and so we have pictures in the archive already of her. And then there was another person who had started up like a children's daycare that was very popular in the 70s and 80s. So the children went on, some of them stayed here in Longmont and started businesses and all of that. Any other questions? All right. We had a descendant of the Arbuthnot come by with some older photos and kind of was working with Dawn Lynn, who's an Arbuthnot living in hygiene. She actually helped me figure out some of the photos actually were not of people in Longmont, and she thankfully helped connect Sally with a museum in Pennsylvania where they were originally from. But this little girl was later on she was a early settler of Longmont, so we will be taking this. It hasn't arrived yet, but we've already agreed to add it to our archives.
This is a crayon portrait?
That's what Don called it.
So these are what those are. They would take a photograph and then they would blow it up and print it very faintly on. Usually these were pretty large, like this by this at least. And then an artist would go over the photograph with crayon or some kind of. So it's sort of a combination of a photograph and a hand-drawn portrait.
Okay. Huh. My
They're
crayons
cool.
only took me to stick figures.
You can really tell in the dress that it's like kind of quickly drawn in.
Is this way of colorizing the?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them have a little bit of color to them. This one doesn't.
It's also because you couldn't print a photo that large, so if you wanted something big to hang on your wall, you needed
That's cool.
an artist to do it.
Any questions on this one?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do these families, when you collect from these families that have a long history here in Longmont, do they provide any kind of written narrative?
Sometimes.
Or do they just kind of tell you? And I mean, what I'm getting at is that it would be very interesting if they were able to, or were willing to, write a kind of a narrative of their family history as the documentation to go along with the photographs. This is very interesting.
Yeah, this family is pretty well, at least especially for about their settler history, documented. The Newtons, they actually gave me a family tree. They also gave me these, one of the kids wrote books about their experience growing up here. So they gave me signed copies of those as well. So they'll all be added to the archive.
Okay.
This was deposited in the Friends book sale, and the Friends brought it here. It is 1896 souvenir of the 1st Colorado Regiment. It's got listings of everyone who was involved, which includes a few Longmonters, and there's kind of cool ads for like Coors and Zangier and various wines. So it's kind of a interesting old book that at least documents those veterans from Longmont that were involved in this regiment. I'm not exactly sure why they published this or where they handed it out, but it's a nice souvenir. Let's see, another little one-off donation. This was actually kind of cool once I really started to look at it. The very front, so this is all hand-drawn, this owl on a moon with like holly and ivy. And inside it, the first page says, this selected by pupils of grade 7 and 8, Longmont, Colorado, 1906. And so it is all kind of famous quotes, lots of Ralph Waldo Emerson, John Lee Greenleaf Whittier, that kind of with Benjamin Franklin quotes, but it has the name of the student that submitted it. So it'll say like Abigail Allen and then a little quote. Okay, this one is something that has been in the archive for a long time. It came from the public library. I would like to add it to the formally add it to the collection and give it a number and track it. It is an 1877 kind of oversized atlas, about this big, filled with colored maps of Colorado, and each one shows kind of a different thing. I think the one that I took a picture of shows sort of like where the mining is versus where's the coal, where's the gold, where's the but gold, and various things that you can mine. What is agricultural? And it's just after the founding of Longmont, it kind of gives an idea of like, if you were an East Coaster and you were kind of like, oh, where do I want to settle or where do I want to invest? It gives you an idea of the resources here in Colorado in the 1870s. This one is not on the sheet that went out.
So maybe let's do a vote on all the ones, and then we can discuss this one separately. This is a purchase, rather than purchase. Any other questions on any of the donations?
So is there any reason to not want one of these or more of them to be accessed?
I think what I would say is it's always good for the board to raise questions, because, and I will someday show you an example of something where the board should have raised a question. The previous curator, a car lost its hubcap on her front lawn, and she brought it in and said, well, we should add this to the collection. And it's like, it's a random hubcap. You don't even know where it's from.
I was not on that.
And the board was like, oh, hubcap, fine, great, done. And so, not that I think we would do that, but, I think I would say it's always worth just asking, well, what's the significance of this to Longmont, or what's, and there have been a few times when, the board has provided either before we can accept it, we need more information, or in a few cases, yeah, this doesn't really fit after all, and so we've, elected not to take it. But if there aren't questions about that, then,
And we don't have any deaccessions or things to get rid of from the museum on this meeting, but this board also approves that. Say we're like, oh, we identify the hubcap as something that maybe we don't want to be caring for in perpetuity. You guys are the ones that would have the final say of whether we actually get rid of it. So it's a little bit of like, okay, we don't want to take anything that when 10 years later we're going to just end up doing the opposite work for.
And we did just last meeting eliminate
Yeah, a bunch of 1960s books.
I think you were sending them to New York or someplace
A bunch of things went to New York
that were more appropriate for them.
I'll move to acquire the accessions as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And then a vote? All in favor? It's unanimous.
So the next thing's a little different. It would be in addition to the collection, but we would be spending museum money to purchase it. Jared Thompson, curator of exhibits, has a connection with this artist, indigenous artist, who has been doing a lot of work in the Denver area. He had this particular print was shown at History Colorado a few years, in an art exhibit that they did, an indigenous art exhibit. We would like to include more contemporary indigenous artwork in our history exhibit, and this is one that's available for sale. I did find an artist statement about it. He often combines sort of contemporary imagery with traditional indigenous imagery, portraiture. I believe this picture also became a mural inside of an art building, an art gallery in Telluride. So this would be a signed, framed print. The cost is $800.
Is the artist from this area?
So Greg Deal, he is with Pyramid Lake Paiute. He was the guest curator for our Duality exhibition. He lives in this area now. I don't know if he was born here, but definitely very representative of the sort of contemporary indigenous population in Colorado, which is no longer just one or two tribes, but comes from tribes all across the country.
So he does have a local connection and a local connection to the museum.
Yes. We worked with him quite extensively. Although this work was not in the exhibit, we couldn't afford the work that was in the museum gallery. He selected all of the works that were in the Duality exhibit at the museum last spring.
One did a presentation as well, right?
And did presentations. His band, the Dead Pioneers, played in our auditorium. So yeah, he's quite a character. He also was actually the keynote speaker there was a National Museum conference held in Denver last year, and he was one of the keynote speakers at that. So he's got a lot of connections.
Do you have complementary collections? Complementary images?
Not necessarily. This is kind of our first indigenous artwork, contemporary indigenous art that we've collected. But it is actually something that we identified when we developed the collections plan a year and a half ago, that one of the ways to tell the indigenous story in a way that acknowledges that indigenous people are not just part of history, but also contemporary, which is something that a lot of indigenous folks raise as this is a constant issue for them, is, oh, well, you still live in a teepee, right? You still ride a horse. No, I'm a modern person just like you. I have a cell phone just like you. By collecting contemporary indigenous art rather than 19th century indigenous art.
So is this something you would envision as part of the remake of Frontrange Rising?
Yeah, so originally when we first started the conversation, and we didn't know how quickly we were going to be redoing Frontrange Rising, it was envisioned as replacing, there's a couple of artworks in Frontrange Rising, our core history exhibit, that were done by an artist who is slated to go on trial for sexual assault.
Is that like the Yoda piece?
That's the Yoda piece. And so we were like, we really don't want to have this art in our gallery any longer. that, since that exhibit is actually probably coming down next year as part of the renovation of the museum, I'm not sure whether we will have time to get this and get it scanned and get the new one produced in time to get it into that before that old exhibit goes away. But we still felt like having this then is a kind of ready-made thing that we could put into the next iteration.
So this would be on display at some point.
So that's certainly our
Your
intent.
goal.
We don't have anything right now where we can say,
Right.
yes, it's definitely going to be in this spot.
So, Eric, is this, is this a new collecting area that you intend to pursue?
I think, within pretty limited resources that we have to collect art, there was a beautiful piece that was in the agriculture exhibit that was by another Indigenous artist, Sarah Sense, that combined maps from the museum's collection with native images of native plants. Wow, this would be amazing, and it was like $80,000. Okay.
Is it a potential fundraising?
So yeah, certainly once we get past the capital campaign and we're able to fundraise for other things again.
Well, if you say, we're opening up this new initiative to collect Native American art in the region and use that as your platform to fundraise.
Yeah.
That might be a very good hook for people. And you could pay $80,000.
Yeah. And I will add that a lot of museums are doing this kind of combination of pairing contemporary art with older objects of from tribes. So if you go to the Denver Art Museum, you go to their new Indigenous art galleries, they've done that throughout the entire exhibit. I also went to the Buffalo Bill Center for the West, and they also did it maybe a little bit on a smaller scale. So they'll talk about the tribes, but every 20 feet would be a contemporary art piece interpreting what is in the gallery by someone who's totally trying to remember now.
I was just there, that's weird. Encoding.
I have a question. We are a sister city,
Mm-hmm.
and do we have anything from the reservation? Any artists who were there, or
We have been trying to build those connections. There is a beautiful quilt in the Civic Center that's kind of, the museum at least keeps an eye on it. It's not officially in our collection because it was donated directly to the city rather than to the museum. But that's another area where we absolutely would love to build those connections.
I know I can speak for a little bit with the sister cities. A lot of the work that we've been doing is building trust.
Right.
So, there was a lot of damage done historically and a lot of distrust. So even once we, signed, and it was during my term when we signed the coalition between the Northern Arapaho and the city of Longmont, that was fairly new, and there was a lot of preparation and building trust and repairing just past damage. And so that was years in the making. And then we're here, where we're at today. And I think there is interest. I've gone a couple of times for visits, and when we meet with the elders, there is interest, but I think it's going to take time. And we're really looking for a kind of organic flow where kind of, folks in the art realm in that area will kind of lead the way. And, what would you be open to as far as any kind of inner city or inner community art opportunity? So it's working. We're working on it. But I think, with the youth going over there, and then next month their youth will be coming to us. And that's something huge.
Right,
For the longest
right.
time, they would not share their children with us. So being able to do that. So that's, we've come a long way. So I think, as we continue these, building those friendships, we're hoping to kind of move to the next level. Not there yet, but we're getting there.
Well, it makes me wonder, acquiring images like this from indigenous artists who are from Colorado can help.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
And
yes.
only, yes. Are we doing any kind of photographic or any kind of, stories, or press on,
I'll talk to Courtney from Sister Cities. I know she's spearheading and doing the organization. And then I just show up where she tells me to show up.
Because I remember a year ago, we did some really good stuff on, talking about the various problems, duality. It
Yes,
was fabulous, and I wanted more.
Uh-huh.
I really think we need to keep the conversation going
Oh, yeah.
constantly, and bringing in things like this would be great.
Yeah.
Having the kids talk about their experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I'm good.
Are there any other questions on the succession? Would anyone like to move to accept the succession?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, let's all vote. All in favor? Unanimous?
Great. I will also give one update. If you may remember, a few meetings ago, we voted to accept a mural from the 1990s. Ann, Macca, and I did a oral history with the program director at the time, and she wrote all kinds of scrapbooks, so that may be something that we'll be adding later, but it will be shown at Day of the Dead. And we're hoping of getting as many of the students that worked on them in the 1990s together to do sort of like a kind of reunion and be a part of our Day of the Dead exhibit down there. So Anna's really been heading that up. She's been really great.
Have you heard from Galen?
No, I have not been able to get in touch with him at all. I think someone who has a real connection with him is going to have to reach out. Like, just a random name. I have his email and they said contact you via Instagram, and I tried.
I think we're ready to move on to the report from the mayor.
Okay, so we have 2 months worth of reports since we did not meet last month. And I will just touch on a few things from May, June. I mentioned in the May, June report that I was headed to the History Leadership Institute in Indianapolis, and that was an amazing experience. 2 weeks with a cohort of 19 people and speakers from museums from around the country, talking about not the nuts and bolts of how you do a budget, but how does your budget reflect your values? Not like how to build an exhibit, but how do you do an exhibit that expresses hard and difficult issues? There was a wonderful presentation from the director at the Lincoln's Cottage, which is a small museum in Washington, D.C., where Abraham and Mary Lincoln went in the summers. And one of the summers was when they were mourning the death of their son. And the director was saying how when she was working there, she actually lost a child. And she started thinking about, we should do an exhibit talking about grief and child loss. And it's been just an incredible experience for them. Very small space. It's about, I think, the size of this room. But there's this beautiful weeping willow where you can write, the name of someone that you've lost and hang it on the tree, and just, people have conversations about grief and how that is in a museum setting. So, just people taking museums kind of to a next level. So it was a great experience, and it's one that I'm gonna continue to be working through and exploring with everyone about, how can we really be exploring and living our values as a museum. So I was really honored to be chosen for it, and really pleased to be able to go, and thankful for the staff for filling in the 2 weeks when I'm gone. Mentioned the Lego exhibition has been hugely successful, opened up June 1st, and has been really steady, great attendance ever since then. And I think that's probably all I'm going to talk about from the May-June report. It's a little while ago. Moving on to June, July. First item on there is that we are continuing to move forward with design for the next phase of the museum expansion. So you can see the courtyard is very close to being done. It's every month I feel like I'm saying, it's just a little bit closer. We've had a few supply chain issues that have held up getting it finally done, but it should be ready for operation hopefully by next week. So, and then there'll be some last enhancements that'll come in August to kind of finish it off. But then the phase 2, which is our gallery expansion, that we submitted to the city's design review committee. It's kind of been going back and forth a little more than we had hoped in terms of getting some issues resolved, primarily around the plans for the drainage of this campus are now 25 years old almost, and we hoped we could just update our little corner of it, but planning is making us really do a fuller update. So that's delayed things a little more, but we are continuing.
What do you got to do? A big environmental study?
Luckily not an environmental impact
Prairie
statement
dogs,
or anything like
is
that. It's basically just that the original plan said, well, there isn't really going to be any development around the museum and around the campus, and we know now 25 years later there'll someday be development to our west. There'll be some sort of more park development to our north, and so because we are the first ones developing, planning has said you need to figure out how to make all that work from a drainage perspective. So that is.
Well, it sounds like you have to start from scratch again.
So luckily, just on kind of some of the drainage issues, we've got a very talented civil engineer that's already working on it. So probably, hopefully, a month to 6 week delay in our process, which is news I got today. Before that.
So just to clarify, no one has plans to develop along 287 here?
There is a developer. That project has actually been in the works now for 17 years.
What does he want? What does he want to build?
So it's basically a small shopping center.
So in another 17 years.
Yeah.
I'm hoping
Whoa.
we'll get a Trader Joe's there. That's what I really want.
A what?
Like a Trader Joe's or some kind of market or.
Yeah.
But
We tried to get Trader Joe's in. When Lucky's closed down, the town was looking at Trader Joe's, but one of the things I read was that they have one so close, I think, in Fort Collins.
There's one in Boulder.
In Boulder, and they felt it was too much to put in, but we definitely need it.
Yeah, a grocery store on this side of town.
Yeah,
so anyway, that project is. It's up to the developer. They will move forward when they feel it's right. So
It's a wasteland. Hopefully, no one
so that is, but it is in process. So we are moving forward with design review and continuing with construction package as well. Then I really really want to talk about the Sunset Soiree. There are cards there, if folks could hand those around. Feel free to take as many as you would like. This is our really inaugural fundraising event, and it is focused on the capital campaign. September 7th, it will be also the unveiling of the new courtyard. So we'll have a ribbon cutting for the courtyard. We'll have a band. There'll be food, drinks. There'll be kind of showcase of different things that the museum's doing. Tickets are now live. You should all be getting one of these in the mail, but I would hope you all will mark your calendars and buy tickets now, because this is a really key event for us. And if you know of other folks that you think are museum supporters and would enjoy coming to this event, please hand the card to them. Let us know if you've got someone that has questions, or the tickets are being sold through support.longmontmuseum.org. It's $100 a ticket, but that does include the dinner, drinks, entertainment, and then there will be a paddle raiser fundraiser. So we're in the midst of planning for that. You can see it's all throughout the director's report, different people working on different aspects of it. But it's really the next big push in our capital campaign. So we are very excited about both unveiling our courtyard and taking the next step forward with the capital campaign. Any questions on?
I know a while back we were about 80 or 85%.
We're still around
towards our goal.
86%, I think, is where we are now. There's one grant that we should hear about in August. It's a $250,000 grant. If we get that, that'll bump us up a couple more percent, and this fundraiser, certainly we're hoping to put a big dent in what we have right now.
I have to apologize, I have to go back. Was it an $8 or $10 million?
It's 8.1 million.
8.1.
Is our campaign goal.
And how much is there left to go?
It's about 1.1 million.
Totally.
So, yeah.
From the board alone, really.
Right. And then you also finished it there. We didn't even have to. No,
We forgot to tell you that.
Now we tell you. That's right. You two
But no, I think this event will be a great chance to see what's going on. We'll have renderings, updated renderings of the plans. We'll have a video with folks talking about kind of how the museum has impacted their lives, and as I say, the different departments within the museum will kind of be showcasing what they're doing, leasing photo opportunities and things like that. Any other questions on that?
So I have kind of a weird question. So you've got exhibit space, you've learned about this nice grief exhibit. So, but how do you decide as museum director whether to go with something emotional and touching like that, or like a Lego exhibit?
Oh, that is a great question. And I will say one of the things that we have really struggled with is because we have one gallery that changes. And so we have tended to look at, what is an exhibit that is really going to resonate with the most folks in Longmont. And so we do evaluations. In fact, we talk a little bit in this about something called a card sort. Well, we have a stack of exhibit ideas, and we hand it out. We handed it out at a couple of the summer concerts. And we ask people, sort this in order by which one you're most likely to come and visit the museum. that approach is, I think, something that we've had to do because we only have the one gallery. But as we do an expansion, as we have the possibility of a more flexible gallery space and can do multiple spaces, we may be able to do a larger exhibit that can draw in large numbers, and then a smaller exhibit that's, you know, more of perhaps an emotional impact, or that has a really strong local connection that, you know, highlights a local artist or an aspect of local history. Those are pieces that we've been able to do only infrequently because you know, we have revenue goals that we need to meet, things like that. So I'm really hopeful with this expansion that we will be able to do a little bit more of the more emotional exhibits, the more complicated topic type exhibits, while still having, you know, exhibits that are bringing in, you know, folks from across the community and across the region, because that's certainly a big part of our mission too, is to make sure we are serving a broad swath of the community. So we do, you know, evaluations to choose things. We look at what is available. You know, traveling exhibits, we're typically having to choose 3 years or more out, because really good exhibits that are, you know, in our price range get reserved very quickly. So, you know, we are planning multiple years out for exhibits that we can bring in that fit our space. So there's a lot of constraints around that, but a lot of it just deals with what we really feel like the community is going to resonate with.
How are these national exhibits organized? Who does it?
So there are companies that,
Okay.
so for example, the Picturing the West exhibit, the photography exhibit we had right before this, it was organized by a company called Art to Art Circulating Exhibits. And they work with private collectors who have collections. In this case, all of that came from one private collection. New York City collectors that actually have unbelievable photography collections. The third exhibit we've had from those particular collectors. But others actually develop the exhibit in-house and then travel it. And then there's also some sort of museum consortiums that we're just starting to explore, where it's almost like more of a loan network, and we work, you know, with a number of different museums that make artwork available for loan, and then, you know, they have.
Are those less expensive than the ones?
They actually tend to be more expensive because typically original art, just the cost of creating and shipping things that aren't photography is pretty, you know, straightforward to create and ship. But once you get into sculpture, work on canvas, it's a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
So for example, we're looking at potentially an M.C. Escher or an Andy Warhol exhibit to open the expansion with. Those are between $75,000 and $100,000 to rent. So significantly more than what we are paying now, which is typically in the $30,000 range.
For how long?
That's for 3 months. So yeah, it's definitely, with this expansion, we're kind of into a new level of what we're going to need.
How much does the city give you for the traveling?
Traveling exhibits in our budget is about $25,000 a year for the rental of the exhibit, and then we have staff and so forth. And so that's why we've done a lot more in-house developed exhibits.
Well, that's not very much. Can't the city double it, triple it?
We're hearing from all the departments right now.
Yeah, but we're the important one.
There's a fun one.
We are the fun one.
Yes.
So, well, I'll just highlight a few more things in our director's report. We are starting planning for 2026, which is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, the 150th anniversary of Colorado statehood, and there is a America 250, Colorado 150 commission that meets periodically, and they'll be meeting here in October. So we are starting planning, and in the coming months, I'm going to have the City Council approve a proclamation recognizing that, the American 250, Colorado 150 is.
Well, you gotta pass that through the board first.
So that's one of the things that's going to be on the City Council agenda in coming months. I haven't scheduled it yet, but the commission is encouraging all the communities in the area to do that as kind of a show of support for this event. Summer camp is actually, this is our last week of summer camp. So we've had lots of kids coming in every day for a whole variety of different camps. It's been really fun to see them all come in. I know Callie.
My child's in depression.
Lots of smiles on the way out the door today, though. So lots of kids. Lots of kids had a great time here.
And then we've had 2 summer concerts out in the parks. One Willow Farm Park that was in between rainstorms, so not as big a crowd as we might have hoped, but then an amazing crowd for Denver Tycho and Collier Park last week, probably 450 or so folks. And we've got one next week in Carr Park up in north central Longmont. So that will be Kutundara, which is an African inspired musical performance. So excited to come and check it out. They're free concerts. And then the final thing, I just on page 3 of the director's report, you can see in June of 2023, we had 1,300 people come through our exhibits in June for the agriculture exhibit. In June of 2024, for Legos, we had almost quadruple that, triple that, basically, for Lego. It's been a very, very successful exhibit.
And I guess the gift shop sales are related to the Lego exhibit.
Yes.
So when you look at that big bump.
My grandson just went to that.
It sounds like maybe you should bring it back once every 5 years.
So we will, so the expansion will have a dedicated children's gallery. So we are hoping that it will essentially, the museum won't be, when there's a special exhibit, I'll bring my children there. It will be, I will bring my children there regularly because there will be always lots of activities for them to do and come back and visit. So we're really excited about, we anticipate a pretty significant increase in attendance once we open that.
At the Denver Art Museum, one of the things I always liked was the fact that they had downstairs, we could go in and they had things for kids to do, and my daughter just came today with my grandson, and she said, "I'm glad you're on the board, Mom. We need to have this, blah, blah, blah." They really loved it.
Good.
Is there any discussion about keeping parts, since this was like an in-house?
We've definitely
of keeping it for the children's gallery.
Probably not for the children's gallery. We really want that to be kind of a fresh experience. This is designed to last, 6 months. Ideally, the children's gallery is going to be built out of, super durable materials, so it will last longer and be, the basic concept is kind of dealing with dreams right now. So some really sort of fantastical landscapes and so forth. So it's an exciting concept, still in the early phases, but we may well bring back Lego or pieces of Lego as in our Flex Gallery or as kind of filler, if particularly as construction schedules flex, we may need to just. We're going to have part of Lego again because we have a gallery available for a time. So we're still trying to figure that out because we're also possibly going to either travel that exhibit or sell it to another museum, which is what we did with the last Lego exhibit. We traveled it to one other museum and then sold it to
25,000.
So yeah, I think at least.
Yeah, at least.
report. Do we have any unfinished business that needs to be addressed? Any new business?
How's art in public places? Any developments there?
They've got a lot of projects going. They're doing projects right now in 2 parks that are under development, as well as all of the sort of ongoing annual projects. The shock art, where they paint the shock art boxes, that the voting for those just closed last Friday, and the art on the move, the temporary artworks around town, those were just installed, new ones about 6 weeks ago. So yeah, there's a lot going on in art in both places.
Do we have any other board comments or board questions? Would anyone like to move to adjourn the meeting? Is there a second? All in favor?
Hey.
Yes, thank you all so much.
Thank you.